Hey everybody, welcome to my workshop here in Axminster in Devon, and we're supporting today the woodturning store. Now, all of our demos before have been product-based, so it's been explaining what the chucks, the centres and everything we make here in Axminster is all about. But today we're going to do a project. We're going to make one of these little smokers. And if you manage to get to SWAT over in Texas, you would have seen me, or hopefully you would have seen me demonstrating these at that event. It went down really, really well. And I demonstrate these all over the UK as well. They were actually a German, an old Christmas German project. And I've got Steph here, by the way, on cameras and all the trickery. She's going to be asking questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. She's then going to relay them to me so we can answer them for you. And Steph's going to put up just a couple of pictures of some of the finished smokers that I've done before we start talking about the one that I've got here in front of me. And so here we are. Now, whilst these pictures are up, I'm going to explain what they are a little bit. The idea behind a smoker, you may be confused with its name, is they're actually incense burners, and they're linked very closely to German nutcrackers. German nutcrackers tend to go up in Advent, so before Christmas itself, and they're good luck charms. They see off all the evil thoughts, evil spirits, whatever you want to call them, and they bare their gnashing teeth to scare away the spirits. Figures of authority, so kings, queens, soldiers, that sort of stuff. Now the smokers, what we're looking at there, this is a load of Viking smokers. They represent the working man or women, so things like Vikings, things like wood turners. If you go to the next pic there, Steph, there we are. There's a load of wood turners, all happy with their rosy cheeks, all with their mouths wide open because they're going to be expelling that smoke or incense. Now the idea, when you come back to me in a minute, we'll show you where that incense comes from. But they're again a good luck charm. They go up after Christmas. So same thing, nutcracker comes down, they go up, and that's, like I say, the working man or woman. Lovely stuff, thank you very much. So if we come back to this one here, this is a woodsman. So he's got a complete with his log that he's chopping. He's got his axe there. He's got his lumberjack shirt on, of course, and a peak cap. But if we take the top off, this is where the business end is. So here in the center there, maybe let's go up above. Oh, there we go. There we are. And we can just see, if I get that end of shot there, we can just see this little piece here. I haven't glued this on yet. Okay, that's just a little incense cone holder. Purpose made. I import these in from Germany, especially to do this. But that then fits on top of the actual incense, the top of the incense burner. And you can just see down in there a little hole. That hole travels all the way up, and eventually the smoke then will travel out through the mouth itself. So you can see the big wide mouth. Have to have rosy cheeks, of course, because it's blowing all the smoke out. All right, so there we are. That's the idea. So that's the story behind them. They're a good luck charm. The beauty of these little figures is that most of these are going to be forgiving to people. Let's face it. You know, whether it's Christmas or not, I've managed to make them figures that don't actually represent Christmas, and a lot of them were like that. But you can give them to people, and you can then mimic. Let's say, for instance, you can mimic their hobbies. So if you've got a keen fisherman, for instance, you can give them to them. So fisherman or fisherwoman. Or if you've got somebody serving in the forces or the fire or the police, you can make them that character. And that's what it's all about, really. The figures themselves are pretty much the same turning, but it's how you embellish them, how you decorate them, what cap you put on, what tools you have with them with. Those are the sorts of the things that give them the character. And makes them then associate with the person that you're going to give them for. So they're really, really fun things to do, because we spend lots of time turning bowls and spindles and things like that, and worrying about a skew catch and all those sorts of things. Sometimes we just got to go back to having a bit of fun on the lathe, and that's what these are for. They really create that smile when you give them to the recipient. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make some of those. Along the journey, along the way of making these, there's lots of great work holding solutions, I suppose you could call it. And I'm going to experiment with a few different ways of holding as well. So we're going to start to build this thing from the ground up. We're going to go through all the little secrets, well, not secrets, all the little tricks along the way. So we've got to start with a base. Now you could, if you wanted to, and you had chucks to suit, you could go just with a big set of jaws. Now let's just have a look at the base that I've got here. This is a piece of maple, and this is what we refer to as bird's eye maple. It's got some nice little bird's eye, little pips in there. And I would use pieces of timber like, I guess you could say, the base, but also the hands, the face or the head. Use those as feature timbers, so you don't have to paint everything. You know, they're good to be bright and in a way really quite garish figures, but you don't have to paint every single piece. The other thing, we're going to talk about colouring later on as well, and about your choice to either go with an opaque, say an aerosol spray, or a transparent, translucent stain or dye, and they do create very different colours. Going back to the pictures that we had up on screen earlier, the Vikings were transparent, so they had a transparent dye, and you can see the wood through those. And those particular dyes there, that was a product called Hampshire Sheen, intrinsic colours, so I called those the intrinsic Vikings. And you, like I say, you can see the colour through. Now that has a means that the timber you choose for the bodies has to be light, otherwise you're going to start impacting on the colour that that you're giving them. If you go to the turners there, Steph, now those are completely opaque colours. You can't see through them. They cover up the timber. Now that means you can use whatever timber you want. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't impact on the colour that you finish with. So you can see. Now look at the hats that those guys are wearing. We've got feature timbers. Same with the face. We've got the timber showing through. There's a lot of olive wood I can see. There's some brown oak. There's a bit of yew. On the guy with the grey tunic. So feature timbers play a big part in these, and this is one of them. I've got a lovely piece for the base. There's a lovely piece of like I say, bird's eye maple. So let's look at how we can hold it. Like I say, we could go, if I grab this chuck, we could go with a big chuck. Big set of jaws, pop that in there. There we are. We'll make a recess and expand into it. Let's say you don't have a big set of jaws. Let's just play and experiment, like I said. Not everybody does. So what we're going to do is use a little push plate. I'm using my regular set of sea jaws. So these are the jaws that I get with my chuck. This is the SK80 here. Sorry, SK100 here. We're going to mix it around. We're going to use a couple of different chucks. SK100, bit of scrap wood, or was a bit of scrap wood, flattened off, and then I just use a bit of contact adhesive, and I've glued on a piece of non-slip matting. Okay. All I have to do here is I've got one center point. That's where I marked the piece out. I'm going to pop that up. I've already checked to make sure my head and tailstock centers are aligned, so I'm going to bring the tailstock nice and close. Let me just make that mark a bit deeper. My poor old eyes are struggling in this light, so let's just make that a bit deeper. Now what we're going to do is center up. You might also have noticed the center that I'm using in the tailstock isn't a single point, it's a ring center. So that means that center is not going to dive into that timber too far. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sacrifice about 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch as a little hold point that then I can hold in these jaws. Okay, once I've done that, I can hold that. I can then create a recess on the back, expand the recess, turn the side and the front face. So it's just a way, basically it's putting in one other process. And that one other process, just pretending that we don't have jaws big enough to hold this as a base. This is great. I mean, because let's say you're making a trophy base. Some trophy bases could be huge, you know. So this is a way of avoiding not having those jaws. So let's start with a nice 3/8 bowl gouge. Steph, tell me if I put lamps and stuff in the way. I just need to get some light on there. I'm just going to make a little foot. So about 1/8, I reckon. There we are. So that's going to be for the inside of my jaws I'm using. Let me just straighten that up with a parting tool. Just going to use a little 6mm parting tool. There we go. Then we'll stop. I'm not sanding anything yet. All I'm doing is creating a hold point. So once I've done that, let's take the tailstock out of the way. This screams batch turning. My training was a production turner, and I really struggle with one-off pieces. So you would do everything to that point. Then we're going to grip onto that. Then we can start thinking about a foot. a recess. So this is now going to be finished parts of our what would be the base. Let's just get rid of tailstock out of our way a little bit at the moment. There we are. Then I'll do a little pull cut. We'll just clean that surface off. That'll do. My recess is going to be, I'm standing above the lathe. There we are. Could use a smaller set of jaws in there if we wanted to, but that should be fine. I don't need to go deep either because I'm using quite a sharp set of dovetails to expand into. There we are. That'll do. What's that? I suppose, yeah, I suppose that's about 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, well, that's the big bulky cut. Now we'll do a nice fine cut just to clean up with. Here we are. And let's go in with a little skew just to create my dovetail. I'm never overly fussed about getting the exact dovetail angle in. As long as it's slightly swept back, that's all I care about. I mean, let's face it, on this sort of size of project, we're not making a huge amount of, pressure on the piece. There, let's stop and have a look. Now, I'm not going to bother to sand anything. I can do that afterwards, but just to save a little bit of time. But there we are, that's the recess. We don't want too much tearing at that point. We want to be nice and clean. The reason being, if we heavy sand with a coarse abrasive, we could change shapes and stuff like that. I don't really want to do that. So, there we are. Now I can close my jaw, slot in there, expand into the recess and finish the base. I need to have the front face, this face here, dead flat, otherwise our smoker's going to be standing at a funny angle. So let's work on that. I'll just clean the outside edge up first, and I'm going to do that by just dropping the tool handle down and just skimming away from the chuck. There we are, nice and low with the handle of the gouge there. Reason being that then you present the gouge almost like a skew chisel. So you get a really clean finish, no tearing or anything like that. So sanding is going to be a lot easier. And of course, we're going to be sanding end grain here, so we don't want to sand heavy and hard because we're going to generate heat if we do that, and that will be a problem for end grain. It starts to split and shake. So nice low handle. There we go. Taking off all the excess first. And then we're going to go and make sure we've got a nice straight face. There we are. Now I'm going to go for a really big negative rake scraper, i.e. a skew. This is one of my signature skews here, and we're just going to run that across the surface. And then I'm just going to grab a straight edge, or in fact, I've got a straight edge in my hand. Let's check with the skew. Little bit of a rock going on, so I've got a proud center at the moment, so let's take that down. There we are, that looks better. What are we doing for questions? Steph, anything at the moment?
No questions yet.
Oh.
No. Get the questions coming in, everyone.
I'm just going to have to just not say anything, and then hopefully that'll generate questions.
Don't give them all the information that they need and see if they get the bits that are missing.
Right, there we are. So what we would do normally is we would sand that. I would generally start, let's get that out of the way a minute. I would generally start at 100. I'm quite keen on starting quite coarse. So 100, 150, 240, 320, 400, potentially a 600. Not if we're painting though. If you're staining or dyeing, then go up to 600. Brilliant. Maybe 400 will do, depending on the timber. But if you're painting, maybe stop at, I would say, 320, because that gives the paint a good key and gives you a much better surface. Be careful not to go too fine. So if you start going to 800 and 1000, you're going to create a barrier for stain even, and you're glazing the top of the timber and it just will not penetrate as well. You've seen it before, that sort of bubbling on the surface. Don't want that. So, think about your abrasive. There we are. Make sure we do the chuck the right way. So far we've got a base. Lovely bit of timber, like I say, if I can get that light and not to bleach out too much, but there we are. All right. Odd little pit there from the bird's eye. Now, we need to drill a couple of holes. The holes need to be the same width apart in the top as the bottom. Really important. So little templates like this, I tend to do a lot of these. These really, really help. This is a bit of Foamex, bit of cardboard would do the same. Doesn't have to be the right size because you can eyeball it over center. Note what I'm doing as well. So I'm going to make these two holes here. I'm following the grain of that timber. So the grain's running up through. I'm just going to position that where I think center is. I only need to do the two holes. So little bradawl. 1, 2. And now normally I would take that to, I'm going to try and get that camera, where are we? There we are. I'm trying to get that camera to see that. You can just see the bradawl marks there, look. Okay. So normally what I would do with that, take that to a drill press. However, I don't want to keep running away. So I'm going to go with a cordless, okay, normal cordless drill. I don't like doing this for one simple fact is I don't have a stop. And so there is a potential that I could go all the way through and that would be a disaster. So I'm just stopping before I think I should. Especially with a really sharp bit, they actually move quite quick through the timber. There we are. So we've got a couple of holes in there. That's ready. I didn't go through the bottom, thankfully. Right, now we're going to start making the next few pieces and we're going to start building the character from that piece up. I'm going to skim through this so quickly. Only because we've got an hour to do it in. Don't try and do it that quickly. You want to get the pleasure in it, and you want to make sure every piece is really well made, it's sanded, all those sorts of things. Take your time. It's potentially a weekend project, or the turning is a weekend project. The decorating can take days, so be prepared for that one. That's the fun bit. That's the bit that we want to get all the kids involved with. We want all the help that we can get. So next, let's go on to the feet. The feet aren't turned. So, you could split turn them if you wanted to. We're not going to. We're just going to sand. So I'm going to put the sanding disc on. Just a little faceplate ring. And I think we got a question. Yes, Steph?
Yes, we've got a question here from Dexterity. It's asking, do you have plans or is this off the cuff?
I do have plans. I've written a book on the subject. That's on my website. If you search Colwin Way, ColwinWayWoodturner.com, you'll find the plans for these and other things there. At the moment, it's not for sale physically over there, but I can certainly send them over. Not a problem. Okay, let's go for my feet. I have a prepped pair of feet now. But can we get that on picture? There we go. Now the way I do these. The reason I'm giggling here because little bits like this are so fiddly. So the way I get around it is I cut on the bandsaw first, cut the width and the thickness, okay, slightly oversized. Then I'll put this through a surface planer and then eventually through a thicknesser. So I've got long lengths, maybe 2 foot long, and then I'll cut them in half. So much easier handling a longer piece than these tiny little pieces. And that's where I said earlier, about production pieces, you want to do several at a time. It's easier if you do it that way, and then chop, and then you can start marking. Now I pre-drilled them. Again, a little template that I've got here is this other piece of Foamex. So I've just done the shape of the foot that I want to create. I'm going to sand this to shape then eventually. When we were talking about the book and plans and stuff like that, my first one, I'd made it up. and then I tweaked it until I came up with the sort of shape and design that I wanted. So I didn't want to copy the German woodworkers. I wanted to make my own, but I always say it's sort of influenced by what they do, but very much my own style of smoker. And I would encourage you to do exactly the same. Make it yours. Make it yours, definitely. Right, we're going to have a little bit of dust extraction on. Now, if you look at what setup I've got here, I've got the faceplate ring holding a piece of ply with a sanding disc on, held on with Velcro. I hate those sticky sanding discs, so Velcro, definitely. Then I've got the tool rest system here, but I've got the little carving plate. This carving plate then can hold a piece of plywood, MDF, anything like that, and that will be your sanding table. So useful for a wood turner to have a sanding table on the lathe. Utilise the lathe as much as we can. I'm going to put dust extraction on. A little bit of a noise coming up now. Not too much, shouldn't be. And we'll just sand those to shape. The timber that I've got here is chestnut, but literally anything. I've got a low there as well, which is tulip or poplar. So we're just going to sand to your pencil mark. When I'm on the road, I don't necessarily have a template, so you just use a quarter or something like that. Just use that to draw around. That seems to be the right size. Then once you've done the main shape, just turn it over, because you've got these sort of fluffy bits, and just gently. There we are. So this is going to be the heel. That's the toe. So the toe needs to taper down. So let's just turn them over. Bit more. There we are. Now, just a little bit toward the end. What we don't want to do is have that taper all the way back. Otherwise, your leg is going to jut over that little taper. So, same thing in this one. There we are. Flip it over. And then taper in the toes. There we are, a couple of little feet. Makes me smile, making these. Just it's the thought of all that time at school and an apprenticeship of 5 years. I think I've been in the trade now 40 years, and I'm here sanding feet for a smoker. It's quite amusing. But they're fun. They're fun. There we are. So far we have feet and a base. All we need to do now is turn a couple of legs. Proper little Santa's workshop moment here. We're going to tap it in with the hammer. And I'm using fluted beech dowel here. So fluted because with the fluted you can take it apart quite easily. Plain dowel is quite tough to get back out again. And I have sheared a few pieces off. I'm trying to take it apart. Dry fit always before we start adding glue. And I also like to paint before we start gluing things together as well. So you've got those real defined lines of everything. So there, that's the next stage. Well, that's that stage. Let's move on to turning the legs. So some proper turning now. We're going to get the skew out. And I feel like we're properly back in Germany. We're going to use the splay skew. The splay skew, yeah. Signature skew.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever heard you say splay skew before, but signature skew.
That's the proper name.
I hear it all the time.
Yeah, that's the proper name.
I've had a lot of people saying that they've made some smokers themselves. Somebody on here has your book and has thinks it's great, full of colour, great photos. That's always nice to hear for you.
Thank you.
And some people saying it's the first time they've ever heard of smokers before. So
There you go.
got a nice range of wood turners in today and what they do and don't.
Yeah, it's good when
So.
you sort of say smokers. A lot of people know what a German nutcracker is. If you've heard of German nutcrackers, because they're the sort of the most popular thing, or Christmas pyramids, carousels, those sorts of stuff. But German smokers, until they're fully explained, I get a lot of quizzical looks when I first say, I'm going to demonstrate a German smoker. But they are so closely linked to the nutcrackers that I get really surprised that they don't. I don't think they made the transition to the States like nutcrackers did after the Second World War, when all the GIs were coming back home. The nutcrackers were the thing that they were bringing back.
The nutcrackers are very impressive.
Yeah, they are.
They're much larger.
Exactly, and they're scarier looking because they got those gnashing teeth, of course, and also they can be more colourful. You tend to find the smokers are more muted colours, and the nutcrackers are really bold and vibrant. You know, so obviously make whatever you want, but
I like a smoker because I like incense.
you like the incense,
good
exactly.
For me.
That smell. Now look what I'm using here, guys. You may not have seen these before. These are. To me, as someone that's worked for Axminster for like 27 odd years, these are very common. So these are a light pole drive. These are designed to be used on things with a hole in the middle. So they have stepped diameters here. Unfortunately, it is a metric one, but I'm using 6mm dowel, so it's close to 1/4 inch. And they have a taper outside of that diameter, so if it's not quite the right size, it still pulls centrally. And then on this side, I've swapped my ring center over for a single pointed tailstock center. So now these pre-drilled pieces, which are going to be the legs, to hold eventually on that piece of dowel, and then connected with another piece of dowel at the top, should be nice and central. Whatever happens, we're turning around the hole. So I'm going to bring the speed up, and let's go to a skew, and we're just going to push, pull, cut. So push and pull, push and pull. So push, pull, cuts are a roughing cut, and they're just designed to take timber away nice and quickly. Still cutting with the bottom half of the skew chisel, and always end with a push. There we go. I reckon one more and we should be good. Now, in terms of cleaning up the ends, that's quite important, because if you think about it, well, certainly on mine here, I've only bandsawn these pieces, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a cut there just to clean everything. Clean up the end here. And then as long as you do the same on your second one, all's good. Sand that up, of course. I won't bother sanding for this instance. We're going to use that center a lot during this project. There we are. So we have one. Okay, 1 foot ready made. So we got to make another one exactly the same.
One leg, you mean?
Did I say foot?
You said foot.
Sorry. Legs and feet all over the place. So again, push, pull. Going to bring up the other leg just to see if we're about there. You can use calipers if you want to, but that looks fine. Just very gently trim each end. And then of course you can sand. As I've explained, we're not going to sand in this instance. There we go, good. Let's do the next stage. Easy so far, easy so far. I mean, you don't have to use a skew. I just feel a little bit more authentic if I do. It's what they would have been made for, with. That can now go on there. That one on there. So we have so far. That's upside down. Do it the right way, Colwin. There. So we have feet and legs. Okay. Now we're going to move on up. So if we look at my finished smoker, I'm going to take off the little incense cone holder there. So this is, when I teach these, the first morning is making this section. So it's from the base to the platform. The platform holds the legs together. So this is our next piece. Again, if you can do these pieces held or surface planed and then thickness, it saves a lot of work afterwards. We're going to again go back to our initial way of working with that little push plate. So that means our little chuck back on, pop that to one side. There we are. And once again, we're going to go with a ring center on the tailstock. And again, I mean, you're seeing me go through lots of different changes on the lathe. If you do 3 or 4 of these together, let's say you're making for the festive period, you know, sort of Christmas presents, those sorts of things, then it's worth doing 2 or 3. Great solution for Christmas presents. Or Halloween. We've got Halloween coming up, of course. There we go. Right, so I have a little center point. That's important, again. I have 4 holes. The 2 joining holes, this is 6mm or 1/4 inch, whatever you want to use. And then these are slightly bigger. So I've used 8mm here. You could use 3/8. And these are the vent holes. This is to create, this is like a flues, to create the airflow to keep that incense burning. And again, we're just going to go straight up to surface, lock in, and push against the plate. We're going to go to that small bowl gouge again. Let's go with a smaller tool rest, actually. Go with the 100. Go with the 100mm robust. No, sorry, the 150 robust. So 6 inch. Lathe speed is 0. Turn the lathe on. Handle low with the tool. Skim the surface. Right, so what I'm going to check now, I have a certain size of timber here. This particular piece is 75mm, so it's 3 inches. I'm just going to set a pair of calipers. I want to make sure that this doesn't end up being bigger than this, otherwise we've got a problem. All right, so we'll go on with the little outside calipers. I'm going to set the size of disc I want, so I'm going to go for that size there. So a little bit smaller. Now, you might ask why I've set for that size. Well, let's have a look at the one that I've already done. I need to have a couple of things happening here. I've got a little ridge on the inside. That's going to be the piece that the platform actually sits on. But we do need a certain amount of wall thickness as well. So when that fits in there, you can see that we've got a decent wall thickness. Everything fits down nice and flush, and it knows where to stop because of the inside ridge. So we need all that to happen, and to do that, we need material. We need stuff on the body to be able to work it. So I've allowed that. Look, you can see how much I've allowed there. All right, enough, just enough. At the moment, we're too big with the disc, so we've got to take about 3/16 away. Just a little bit more. There we are. That's what I'm going to leave it at. So one other thing I want to do now before we turn the lathe off is I'm going to put a small cut here. Because I haven't planed this already, I'm going to sand the top and the bottom. So I'm going to small cut there, small cut here to make a nice level surface, and we're going to sand the rest of that face to it. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in a minute, because I don't understand what I said there, so I don't expect you to. Again, normally sand the outside edge, or whatever surface you can get to sand, okay? I'll repeat as many as you need to do. Put my sanding disc on. Little push plate. Push plates are so important. I use push plates for so many different things. Even, let me just show you another one before I sand. Even reversing bowls, when I want to remove feet away and things like that, we go for big push plates. Does exactly the same thing. Rouse matting is good, or non-slip matting is excellent. Now let me just show you this. Can you see that? Oh, got the dropsies, Steph. You just see a little line running out on the outside of the periphery of that. I need to sand to that line, so that basically all the horrible bandsaw cut in the middle gone. If you put your pieces through a planer thicknesser first, don't have to do that. That's one step you don't have to do. But you may not have a planer thicknesser. There, let's say that's done. We could do with going a little bit further, but we have a certain amount of time to fit this into, so we're going to stop there. Right, next. If my calculations are right, that should fit together perfectly. I'm about 50% confident, Steph.
I'm 100% confident in you right now, Colwin.
Yeah.
So at least one of us is.
There we are. So let me just push them through a little bit further. Line this up. Just shout at me if I'm not in the right place, Steph. There we are. So next section done. Little bit proud here. Okay, so don't really want that. So I could have gone a little bit smaller in the leg, but we're okay with that. Okay, so that's the first morning done. We've done our first section. We're now going to move on up to the big bits. Let's go for the body next. Body's going to be, I would say the body's none of the pieces are going to be difficult or hard, but this is the most taxing if there is a piece. Yes, Steph. What was the question?
We've got a question from David Black here saying, do you ever put wax on your worm screw to help with removal?
On the chuck, I don't know. No. And I'll tell you why. Honestly, the lathe is in my workshop. The lathe is used 7 days a week. In here, it's probably about 5 days a week, and we never found that they have time to bind at all. They always come off quite free. But no, you're dead right. If you do get that, absolutely, or even a nylon washer, a fibre washer, something like that. If they are getting stuck, yes. Right. Centres next. So we're going to go back with I'm going to go for a spur drive. So what have I done with my spur drive? I might just run and grab another one. And the ring centre in there. 2 seconds. Yes, I just need to go to... Yeah, that one over there. We're going to have a mystery hand come in, everybody. Or even... No, one below it. That's the one. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Steph. You might have to get on the camera. There we are. So look, have a look at what we've got in there. This is a little Pro Drive. Really, really grippy. These does this job perfectly. The thing with using these, they've got a little sprung center. Great for this sort of job if it's a repetitive job. Fantastic. And what this means now is I can just pop that on there. I don't have to knock any centers in. You know, like with a regular 4-prong drive or 2-prong drive or 6-prong drive, you have to knock them in. You don't have to do it with these. They're great intermediate center. So where this sort of job is required, and I don't want to sink in too deep and all those sorts of things. Slightly longer tool rest needed. There we go. Lathe speed to 0, turn the lathe on. I say that all the time, but if I've gone from small to big, then I want to make sure that I don't give myself any surprises. I'm turning, the lathe speed there's about 1800 revs. Again, I don't need to go overly quick. The timber that we're using is lime, so basswood equivalent. But I've used tulip for these. Sycamore maple's a good one. Soft maple probably better than the hard maple, but hard maple does work. It's just hollowing out is a bit more of an issue. 2 jobs now. I'm going to create a hole point for my chuck, and I'm actually going to use a set of jaws, one of my favourite sets of jaws, and this is going to be the O'Donnell jaws. O'Donnell 112, so 1.5 inches. That's all the 112 stands for. And we're going to make a little foot for that one. The jaw that I'm using, grab that one, there we are. That's closed right up. We're going to expand it open a little bit further. The reason I want to use this one is it's going to send the workpiece further away from the chuck, so I got lots of movement there, or less things in the way. So create that foot first. And it's a little dovetail. Now I'm just going to expand the chuck, make sure that I get the right diameter. Yeah, perfect. Or near enough. Put a little dovetail on it. That'll do. And then I'm going to clean up this surface now, just with a gouge, bowl gouge. So let's go with our small bowl gouge. And we are going to drill that out in a moment. Let's start to get the shape in. And what you've got to do is imagine that curve continuing. Are you going to have enough curve there to take away the whole point from that center? And I think we just need to come over a little bit further. There. Just a hint of a back curve down here. Remember, we've only got a certain amount to play with. Remember that little platform here is a certain size. There we are. That's done and ready. So at this point you would sand. Sand, seal. If you're using opaque paint, you'd seal. If you're using transparent dyes and stains, don't seal. Okay, so we'll pop that center just away for the minute and go with our O'Donnell jaws. So remember, we're using O'Donnell 112, so 1.5 inches that stands for. And then we flip.
Colwin, can I ask, are the Axminster Woodturning jaws, are they compatible with any other chucks?
No. Most manufacturers make jaws for their own, so no, unfortunately not. They are, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, they are literally made for the Axminster chucks. We need a drill chuck and a good drill bit. So I'm using a fairly lumpy bit. Why do I need to do all the work myself when I can get a drill bit to do the job? I'm not going to cut in too deep because I need to create the curve on the inside. So there's my point. Let me get a pencil and just show you where I'm going to cut to. So that drill bit is going to go into a roundabout there. Okay, and then we can do the rest of the shaping with the gouge in a second. Lathe speed's going to come down now. I'm going to be cutting roughly 1,000 revs. It's a big old bit, that one. So one hand on the drill chuck. Might get a little bit of screeching as you release the pressure. There we go, where's my mark? There it is. That'll do us. I'll bring that back out. Now I need just to take the tailstock away as well. So that's freed up a huge amount of work for me now. Take that tailstock away, get it out of my way. My next job is to make sure that this platform fits. So I'm going to keep that there. Give you an example of where we are with this. Look, so I'm going to have, I would say, just under 1/4 inch showing. So let's make that now. Now the good thing with this is you'll be pleased to know that you don't have to have a box type fit. So you don't have to have a tight fit. We don't want that. We don't want the top of the smoker screeching as it goes on, because you have to think you're going to be lighting an incense cone and then putting the thing back together, and we don't want any messing around with a glowing incense cone, so we want it to go on nice and easy. Nice and easy, but it mustn't rock around, that's the other thing. Let me just true that up and we'll give that a test fit, see where we are with it. Right, let's give that one a test fit. Luckily, it's perfect.
It's like you do this professionally.
Well, you
that
never
is
know.
very
There we
good.
are. And that's what we want. And that's the sort of fit you want. You don't want it screeching on. You want it to go on and off. And we will get a little bit of movement. So I will get a little bit of movement from this as well as it starts to, as it starts to spring as you release it. So let's go. We're going to start with small bowl gouge. You can't take big cuts for this. We're only held on a very small dovetail. So you could use your box scrapers, of course. And you want a reasonable finish on the inside here as well, because people are going to be looking in the inside. Right, I'm getting to the bottom of the drill bit, so what I'm going to do, I don't want to suddenly crash into it, so handle comes around. Let's start rounding over. I know you can't see, I will show the camera once this is finished. We're aiming for about 3/8 oar thickness, maybe a little bit less. Handle swings around nicely. Just wiggle the handle up and down to cover that center point. Stop, we'll have a check, just a pinch for thickness. Just make sure you stop the lathe if you're going to pinch for thickness though. Oh, I reckon, let's do just one more cut. I think one more cut will be perfect. That dreaded one more cut. And like I say, don't be held hostage by your tools. If you want to go to a round nose scraper, if you want to go to box scrapers, do it. Do what you want. Absolutely no problem. We have a look on the inside of that one now. I would sand this before you take it off. Normally a good sanding sealer as well. Give it a good douse of sanding sealer. And again, colour the inside the same as you have the outside. So there we are. We've got... Sorry. That's right. That's sort of finished we want on the inside. Sanded. And then that'll be ready once we've finished the outside to drill through and put all of our sanded flats on, which we are going to do for you in a minute. So yes. Now I'm just going to flip it. And we're going to expand these jaws into that. Now that's quite fragile, so what I need you to do is just stop your expansion just before you hear the first crack.
When do you know when the crack's coming though?
So you only know that once you've done it once or twice. There we are. Tailstock back on. Don't rely purely on that grip. That's quite a loose fit I gave that, so we're going to up to the centre, a little bit of a tweak from the tailstock, and now I'm going to go for a slightly different tool. We're going to move away from the bowl gouge and the skew, and we're going to go to the tool that's in between the two. So we're going to go for a spindle gouge. Okay, this is a 3/8 spindle. It's the halfway house between the two tools, the bowl gouge and the skew. You won't get the run up like you can with a skew, but it doesn't rake like you can with a bowl gouge, so you can get a really good finish. If you have a detail gouge, exactly the same thing. And we're just going to peel away. So I finish that shape. Turn that lathe speed up a wee bit. Now I can take that away. Nice gentle cut. And at that point you would sand. Now, if you just hand sand, what I found is you will get a transition point still, because the end grain and side grain, you always tend to get a little bit of transition. So I tend to power sand that, but power sand it without getting it too hot. So just a little power sander in your drill, sand it around, you'll get a blemishless finish. But it's end grain. Again, like I said, just be a bit careful. Don't get it too hot. That will split and craze quite quickly. All right, so there we are. That's the body done. Don't forget which way to turn the key. Let's pop that on our feet so far so we can see the figure building. Okay, not the right way. There we go. That way. All right, so let's go on to the arms next. Back to between centre work, and I'm going to speed up. I've just looked at the clock by mistake. I shouldn't have.
You've got 7 minutes.
Take that one off. Okay. We're going fully on now to the light pull drive, ring centre. If you don't buy any other centre for the rest of your life, just at least buy the light pull drive, because I'm going to show you why. They are probably one of my most used drives, because I do a lot of these types of figures. They're great because in a minute you'll see what I'm talking about. This is going to be one of the arms. Our Turners and our Vikings are all wearing smocks. So that's a half sleeve. So just pop one of them pictures back up again. Would you, Steph?
Let me just find it.
There we are. So look, there's the smock. You can see the sort of shape. It's like a domed, a little dome for the top of the sleeves, and the arms come from the bottom. So that's the sort of shape we're doing. Also, whilst we got that picture up, have a look at the heads as well. Again, we're going to do one of those from the same dimension timber. So brilliant. Quite a high speed here, 2,000 revs. Push-pull cuts again. So let's go with a little mid-sized skew. I got some different timber on this one. This is birch. This is a tree that my son and I took down last year, and it's now ready to use. So all I'm doing is feeling for round. We're gonna just trim the underside. This is going to be the bottom of the sleeve, so it needs to be clean. So let's take out a little bit of waste. I need to leave enough waste to take away the hole that center's leaving. Okay. That's about it. Then you'd start sanding. So that's the beauty of a ring light pull drive. I've got a tiny amount of grip there, but it's enough just to take that little nib away, and I can fully sand with it on that drive still. And then when I'm done, take that one off, and we're finished. Do one more of those for you, just to show you why I like that centre so much. Then we'll go straight onto the head.
Are you doing a hat?
Oh, the final thing we're going to do is the hat, yes.
Steve from the Woodturning Store says no pressure.
None. So tidy at the end. Take off some of the waste. A little bit of waste to allow for the nib end. Round over. There we are, sander up. Another one done. All right, one more of those types of turning to do now. This is going to be the head. And we're going to do the hat, and then I'm going to leave the rest to your imagination.
I feel like you stepped it up a gear in that last arm.
Do you think
Not
so?
Not going to lie.
Never look at the clock, that's the trouble. So I still have the same hole on one side. That's really just for holding, so I can sand the rest. The end that has the hole will be covered up with a hat. So that only needs a very slight dome. There we are. So that's the top of the head. We now go down to the chin. Same sort of thing that we've done with the sleeves, really. We're going to take some of that base away. Take out your waist. And round over the chin. Then give a good sand. Okay, there's the head shape. Now I want to just, before we go into the hat, like I say, the hat will be the final piece that we do, and we're going to make it fit that head. I just wanted to show you how all this fits together. So I'm going to put the sander on a minute, and the dust extractor. And we're going to sand all of this at once. So what we have to do is sand 3 flats on the body, and then a flat each on the head and on the arms, so they fit together. So lay speed down now. We're going to be sanding about 1,000 revs. And I'm going to have 2 arm flats first. And again, I'm looking at the grain orientation. I'm not just plonking it anywhere. And then first flat. Now you can see how much of a flat I've sanded on that one. I need to equal that the other side. And then whilst I'm there, I'm going to look at where those 2 flats are and place a flat for the head. Now let me just show you something before I do that. The position of that flat is important. If you have it too low, the figure, let me get it out the right way for you a minute. If you have it too low, the figure looks more like a hunchback. Okay, so we want to have the head coming up a little bit so he stands up taller. So let's go nice and high. Here we are. Now, that needs an 8 or 3/8 hole drilled in it. Using a V-block underneath the bench drill, so the floor standing drill, that can sit in there neatly. You can see how that presents then to the drill. Bring the drill press down, and you want a 3/8 hole in there. That's going to allow the smoke from the body up to go eventually through the head. But we have the other 2 flats here for the arms, which we're going to sand in now. Again, don't have too much of the top here showing, otherwise it's going to look like they're wearing shoulder pads. You might want to have them wearing shoulder pads. You're making
I quite like a shoulder pad personally.
a footballer.
No, I like a shoulder pad.
Well, you know, okay. That's where I need lots of hands now. There, we can see the sort of figure that presents. Now that blends together quite nicely. If you use an epoxy resin glue, 5 minute I would advise. If 5 minute epoxy resin glue, sand it in. It looks like a welded join on the arms then, so you don't actually see a join. But that's how simple that one is. Really, really easy. Now, one thing I want to do before we go is just make the hat for the head. We're going to do a baseball cap just because. I think you can quite easily see the garden hats, which are completely round. They're easy to see how they're done. But let's do a baseball cap. So we'll come back to the sander in a minute. And don't worry, we're not going to run over too much. So if you are waiting to go to work, you won't be too late. If you just hang on 5 minutes at very most. I'm just going to use a bit
Also, you can catch up again later because it will be staying on the Woodturning Store YouTube in case you do really need to go to work.
Just to let you know, we're just finishing our day here, so it's coming towards 6. No, it's gone past 6 o'clock in the evening.
Getting ready to go home for dinner.
For dinner, yeah. Oh, this bit of tin has got a split in it already. Is it a split or might not be a split? We'll go with it and hope for the best.
I guess we'll find out in a minute.
Yeah. So all I'm going to do, just rough it down to a cylinder. So just rough down, I'll do a little foot, so a little parting tool. There we are, a little foot. Now we can go back to our chuck.
We've got a question here from Mark. He's asking, what is the chuck attachment used on the sanding disc for the lathe?
We've call a faceplate ring. The faceplate ring sits, it's got a dovetail on the inside, and that sits in on the outside of the jaws as we expand into them. All right. Faceplate ring. And back on with the chuck. Gonna grip that. And my first job, let's just clean that outside surface down one more time. We're going to do that with a bowl gouge. And that one, just take off any little flicker. There we are. Now the front face, we're going to again do the same thing. Now we can start hollowing out for the head. So we have a head size. We've already made the head, so we know where that's got to sink into. I'm not sure at the moment, but let's just start cutting a little bit further. Now, the good thing with these, if you go too deep, you can always face off a little bit and go a little bit further. But what we do want is that cap just sitting a little bit lower than it would normally do in real life, because we want it to, the eyes from sort of peeking from underneath the cap. It just looks funnier. There we are. I think that's okay. I think we've gone deep enough. That's fine. So, one last thing before we flip is I'm going to put a little with the skew, just a little flat in. You'll see exactly why in a minute. So just a little flat there. Good. So remember, this is going to be a baseball cap. Give myself some room. Right, I better start looking now. Right. They're back with the little spindle gouge. So this is your point to sand. There we are, that's about as far as I dare go. So what I'll do now is part that off with a skew. But what you need to do at this point is sand that up so you've got a good finish. Ready for just turning over. Got a little nib. I do need to clean that top surface up, so where that bit of waste wood, that needs to be cleaned up. So we may as well friction drive this. So if you just, whilst you have that in the chuck, just taper. That's all you need to do. And then that can be either scraped and then sanded around. Okay, so just a nice little friction chuck, just by tapering. Be careful when you're taking that off. You know, to break it, but it's just a very slight taper on there. That's all that was. Now, one last thing to make that into a true baseball cap, we need to give it a peak. And so our blank can come off. We can make another hat from that blank or whatever. So back on with the sanding disc, and back up with the sanding table. Pop the dust extraction on. We're going to sand most of that piece away, actually, just to give our peak its proper shape. Think about the strength of the piece. So we've got the grain running through here. I'm going to take away what would be the weak side, so this bit. Flip it over, do the same on the other side. So that gives us that bit at the moment. We're going to sand away the back. I would recommend, after you've done this, just use the power sanding pad in the lathe as well. Just go to a finer grit just to clean everything up. Almost there, so now we'll just round the peak. There we are. So there we have our baseball cap that's going to fit neatly over our head, and that's all ready for the features, the nose and all those sorts of things. Yes, Steph, question.
Yeah, so somebody has asked, what is the best sanding disc grip for this project?
Well, I mean, that one there's quite a coarse one at 80, or I'd probably go to a 120 if I'm honest, because it's a bit of a combination really. You want the job done quickly, but you don't want to leave big coarse marks in it. Like I said, I'll very often then go straight to my power sanding pad, which is not in front of me. There it is. Power sanding pad. With power sanding pads, you can obviously, as you know, you can put lots of different grits on these, and they're fitting the chuck quite nicely. And then you can go all the way down to sort of 400-600 grit, or even up further than that. And so tidy up any of the scratches that are left from your coarser main disc, and that works really well. All right, Steph?
Yep, all good. That's it on the questions.
That's it on the questions. That was not quite. It was a little bit longer than an hour, so I do apologise for that. But you can appreciate there's quite a lot to get through in that one. What I would recommend now is give that a go. Just give it a go. You know, if you think it looks tricky, yeah, maybe the first time it is, but once you've started understanding what the little pressures and things are, then there's a huge amount of work holding solutions in that, and fun to be had on the lathe as well. I always get quite excited when I'm putting the eyes on, because that's the character that comes to life then. So it is a fun project. It's a fun one, but the underlying issue there, or the tone is practice. It's solving those work holding problems. And just understanding a little bit more about colour as well. Play around with colour. Keep pale timbers if you want to go transparent. Go any timber if you want to go opaque. But above all, have fun with it. I want to say thank you for everybody that stopped by to look at today's demonstration. I want to thank Steve from the Woodturning store as well, of course, for putting up with us and having us demonstrate on his channel. So I do thank you very much. Anything you want to say, Steph, before we sign off?
Just thanks for having me. And Joe B has been on saying that great demo, obviously, but he understands that I've done the majority of the hard work. So
of course.
Thanks very much, Joe, for recognising that.
Always behind the camera, yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great day. Bye-bye.